I was enjoying my day off, lounging on my sofa and scrolling through Netflix when my phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hey, Ruby, how are you doing?" Mom's voice had that sweet, insinuating tone she always used when she wanted something. "I'm good, just relaxing. What's up?" I asked, already bracing myself. "Well, I need to ask you for a small favor," she said, confirming my suspicions. "Your brother just moved out of his apartment, his lease ended, and he's having some temporary money problems." I sighed. Jake was 26, 4 years younger than me, and had never quite gotten his act together. He jumped from job to job, relationship to relationship, always with some excuse about why things fell apart. "Mom, where's this going?" I asked, though I already knew. "Well, you have that empty apartment from your divorce with Mark," she said, her voice getting higher. "Jake needs somewhere to stay until he gets back on his feet. I thought maybe he could stay there for a little while, just until he sorts things out." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. That apartment was my financial safety net. After my divorce 3 years ago, I kept the apartment we had bought together as part of the settlement. 2 years later, I bought myself a nicer place in a better neighborhood, taking on a hefty mortgage. My plan was to rent out the old apartment to help cover my mortgage payments. "Mum, I was planning to rent that place out," I reminded her. "I need the rental income to help with my mortgage." "I know, sweetie, but this is family we're talking about. Jake really needs help right now. You're doing so well at your marketing job and he's struggling. It would just be temporary." I knew what temporary meant in Jake's vocabulary. I also knew that if I refused, Mum would bring this up at every family gathering for the next decade, suddenly hinting at how I'd abandoned my brother in his time of need. "Fine," I said after a long pause. "He can stay there temporarily." "But I mean temporarily, Mum." "Thank you so much. Jake will be so grateful. I'll tell him right away." Before I could set any more conditions, she hung up. I threw my phone onto the couch cushion next to me and groaned loudly. So much for my rental income. A week later, I met Jake at the old apartment with his few belongings. He looked exactly as I expected, casual, relaxed, like he didn't have a care in the world, despite being essentially homeless and jobless. "Hey sis, thanks for this, you're a lifesaver," he said, giving me a quick hug. He smelled like he'd just smoked a cigarette. "Yeah, well, like I told Mum, this is temporary," I said, unlocking the door and walking inside. The place was clean and empty, with just the basic furniture I'd left behind. "I need to rent this place out eventually." Of course," Jake said, looking around. "I'll be out of your hair in no time. Just need to get my next gig lined up, you know. Got some promising leads already." I'd heard that before. "Jake, I need you to follow some rules while you're here." He turned to me with a slightly annoyed expression, but quickly masked it. "Sure, shoot!" "First, no moving anyone else in without my permission. Second, clean up after yourself. This place needs to stay in good condition. Third, no loud parties. The neighbors already know me, and I don't want complaints. Fourth, no pets without asking me first." Jake held up his hands, totally reasonable. "I promise I'll be the perfect tenant. You won't even know I'm here." For the first few weeks, I was vigilant. I'd stopped by after work unannounced, and to my surprise, Jake seemed to be keeping his promises. The apartment was reasonably clean, no strange people were living there, and he even cooked dinner for me a few times when I came over. "See, I told you I'd grown up," he said one evening as we ate pasta he'd prepared. "I'm impressed," I admitted. Maybe Mum was right for once. When I went to my parents' house for our traditional Saturday dinners, they were full of praise. "It's so good to see you two getting along," Mom said, serving meatloaf. "Family should always help family. I'm proud of you, Ruby." Dad nodded in agreement. "Jake says you've been really supportive. That's what siblings are for." I felt a warm glow of approval I hadn't felt from them in years. Maybe this wasn't such a bad situation after all. After about 2 months, I relaxed my surveillance. Work got busier and I was dating someone new. I'd call Jake occasionally to check in, but I stopped dropping by unannounced. "Everything good over there?" I'd ask. "Yep, All good? Place is clean? Bills are paid? No wild parties? He'd always respond cheerfully. I should have known it was too good to be true. One Tuesday evening, I suddenly remembered I'd left some important documents in the filing cabinet in the spare bedroom of the apartment. I needed them for a meeting the next day, so I drove over without calling first. When I got to the apartment, I could hear music blasting from inside. I rang the doorbell, but no one answered. After trying a couple more times, I used my key to let myself in. The sight that greeted me stopped me in my tracks. A young woman I'd never seen before was dancing around my living room, wearing nothing but one of Jake's t-shirts. When she saw me, her eyes widened in shock, then narrowed in anger. "What the hell? Who are you, and why are you breaking into our apartment?" she yelled over the music. "Our apartment?" I was too stunned to respond immediately. "Hello, I'm talking to you. You can't just walk into someone's home with a key," she continued, turning down the music with a remote. Before I could answer, Jake came rushing out of the bedroom wearing only boxers. His face fell when he saw me. "Ruby, I didn't know you were coming by," he stammered. "Clearly," I said, finding my voice. "Who is this?" The girl crossed her arms. "I should be asking who you are." "I'm Ruby. I own this apartment." I turned to Jake. "Care to explain?" "This is Amber," Jake said, moving between us. "My girlfriend. She needed a place to stay." "And you moved her in without asking me?" I finished for him. "Even though the first rule was not to move anyone in without my permission?" Amber rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, are you serious right now? We're adults. Jake doesn't need your permission for who stays in his apartment." "It's not his apartment," I said firmly. "It's mine." "Ruby, come on," Jake whined, putting on his best pleading face, the same one he'd been using since we were kids. "I love her. We're really serious about each other. I was going to tell you, but I knew you'd get all uptight about it." I looked between them. Jake was giving me puppy dog eyes, while Amber was staring at me with open hostility. "How long has she been living here?" I asked. "About a month," Jake admitted. "A month? A whole month, and you hadn't bothered to mention it?" I took a deep breath and counted to 10 in my head. "Jake, can we talk privately for a minute?" "Anything you have to say to him you can say in front of me," Amber cut in. I stared at her. "I'd like to speak to my brother alone, in my apartment." Jake squeezed Amber's arm. "Just give us a sec, babe." She huffed, but stomped off to the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. "Charming," I muttered once she was gone. "She's just protective," Jake said. "And you kind of freaked her out by just walking in with my key to my apartment?" I crossed my arms. "Jake, what the hell? We had an agreement." I know," he sighed. "But we've been together for 3 months, and her roommate kicked her out, and it just made sense. She's really great when you get to know her." I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache coming on. Part of me wanted to tell them both to pack their things and get out. But I knew what would happen. Mom and Dad would take Jake's side, and I'd be the cold-hearted sister who threw her brother and his girlfriend onto the street. "Fine," I said. "She can stay too, but the other rules still apply. Keep the place clean, no parties, no pets without asking." Jake's face broke into a huge smile, and he hugged me. "You're the best. I promise we'll follow all the other rules. You won't regret this." "I already do," I mumbled, but he didn't hear me. As I was gathering my documents and heading toward the door, Amber emerged from the bedroom. "So, I'm allowed to stay? How generous of you," she said with a smirk. "Amber, be nice," Jake said weakly. "No, I'm serious. Thank you, Ruby," she said, but her tone made it clear she wasn't thankful at all. "But next time, maybe knock before using your key. It's kind of invasive to just walk in." I opened my mouth to remind her whose name was on the deed, but decided it wasn't worth it. "Sure." As I reached for the door handle, Amber stepped in front of me and opened it. "Bye now," she said with a fake smile and practically slammed the door behind me. I stood in the hallway, stunned. Did that really just happen? Did my brother's girlfriend just kick me out of my own apartment? That Saturday, I went to my parents' house for dinner, still fuming about the encounter. "So, I met Jake's girlfriend," I said as we ate. Isn't she lovely? Mom beamed. Jake brought her over last week. Such a sweet girl. I nearly choked on my potatoes. Sweet? She was incredibly rude to me. I told them about finding Amber at the apartment and how she'd acted toward me. Mom waved her hand dismissively. You probably just caught her off guard, and using your key without warning, that would startle anyone. It's my apartment, I said, feeling like a broken record, and they broke the rules we agreed on. Oh, Ruby, Mom sighed. You need to understand. Jake's building a serious relationship here. They want to create a home together. In my apartment, I emphasized. Can't you be happy for your brother? Dad asked. After your divorce, you should understand how important it is to find someone.
That stung. They knew my ex-husband had cheated on me. Yet somehow, they were using my failed marriage to guilt me about Jake. This isn't about my divorce, I said. It's about Jake not respecting our agreement. Family is more important than rules, Mom said firmly. You have 2 apartments, Ruby. Your brother has none. You can afford to be generous. I gave up trying to make them understand and change the subject. The following week, I got the utility bills for Jake's apartment. My jaw dropped when I saw the amounts, nearly double what they were before. I called Jake immediately. Hey, have you seen the utility bills? They're twice as high as they should be. What's going on? Well, he hesitated. Amber likes to take really long baths. Like, really long. And she says she needs light to see, so she keeps all the lights on. I closed my eyes and counted to 10. Jake, I'm paying those bills. I know, I'm sorry. I'll talk to her about it. Please do, I said. I can't afford these kinds of increases. I promise, sis. I'll handle it. I wanted to believe him, but a part of me knew better. 3 weeks later, my phone rang. It was Mrs. Patel, the elderly woman who lived across the hall from my apartment. Ms. Ruby, I am sorry to bother you, she said in her gentle accent. But there have been very loud parties in your apartment. Many nights, very late. Too much noise, too many people. I apologized profusely, promising to address the issue, even as anger bubbled inside me. First the unauthorized roommate, then the bills, now parties? Jake had broken every single rule. The next day, I drove to the apartment after work. I knocked on the door, then rang the doorbell, but no one answered. I tried my key, but it wouldn't turn in the lock. I stared at the door in disbelief. They had changed the locks. They had changed the locks to my apartment. I was beyond furious now. I went down to my car and decided to wait. 2 hours later, Jake and Amber appeared, walking toward the building entrance. I followed them inside and up the elevator. When they reached the apartment door, I called out, Jake. He turned, his face dropping when he saw me. Amber looked annoyed. What are you doing here? She asked. We need to talk about why my key doesn't work anymore, I said. Now Jake at least had the decency to look embarrassed. Ruby, I can explain. Let's talk inside, I insisted, pushing past Amber, who gave me a dirty look but stepped aside. Once inside, I noticed the apartment was messier than before. Empty beer bottles lined the kitchen counter, and the living room furniture had been rearranged. Why did you change the locks? I demanded. Before Jake could answer, Amber jumped in. I didn't like the idea of you being able to just walk in whenever you wanted. It's creepy. I turned to Jake. Did you agree to this? He looked at the floor, then nodded slightly. You know what? I've had enough, I said. Mrs. Patel called me yesterday. She says you've been having loud parties. That old bat needs to mind her own business, Amber muttered. The neighbors are my business, I said. And so are the utility bills, which have doubled since you moved in. Jake stepped forward. Ruby, can we talk about this later, when everyone's calmer? No, we're talking about it now, I insisted. You've broken every single rule we agreed on. You moved someone in without asking. You're not keeping the place clean. You're having parties. And now you've changed the locks to my property without my permission. Amber rolled her eyes and went to a drawer, pulling out a folded piece of paper. Here. What's this? I asked, not taking it. It's a list of rules, she said, shoving it into my hands. If you want to visit your apartment, these are the conditions. I unfolded the paper, not believing what I was hearing. As I read through the list, my jaw dropped. The first rule stated I needed to give them at least 3 days' notice before visiting. The second said I couldn't come after 7 p.m. or before 10 a.m. The third forbidden topic was any discussion of bills. Rule 4 stated I needed to be quiet while visiting and not create drama. Rule 5 demanded I buy them new furniture since the current stuff was old and ugly. The list went on with increasingly ridiculous demands. I looked up from the paper to see Amber smirking and Jake looking uncomfortable. Something snapped inside me. A strange calm washed over me. You have 1 week to move out. Their smug expressions vanished. What? Jake sputtered. You can't kick us out, Amber shouted. We have rights. You're not on the lease. There is no lease. This is my property, and I'm telling you that you have 1 week to find somewhere else to live. Amber's face contorted with rage. She grabbed a vase from the bookshelf, a blue glass one I'd bought in Venice during my honeymoon, and threw it to the floor. It shattered into dozens of pieces. I flinched but kept my composure. That vase cost $200. You'll be reimbursing me. Go to hell, she spat. She reached for another decorative item, a ceramic bowl. Touch anything else, and I'm calling the police, I warned her. Destruction of property is a crime. She froze, hands still outstretched. 1 week, I repeated, then turned and walked out. As I closed the door behind me, I heard Amber screaming obscenities while Jake tried to calm her down. I walked to my car with my head held high, but once inside, my hands started shaking. I'd never stood up to Jake like that before. I had just pulled into my driveway when my phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen. Great, Jake had already called her. Hello, I answered, bracing myself. Ruby, what is wrong with you? She started immediately. Jake just called us in tears. How could you kick your brother and his girlfriend out onto the street? Mom, they changed the locks to my apartment without asking me. I'm sure they had their reasons, she dismissed. You're always barging in without warning. Dad's voice came on the line. Your mother and I are very disappointed in you, Ruby. After everything we've done for you, what exactly have you done for me, Dad? I interrupted. I bought my own place. I'm paying my own mortgage. I'm letting Jake stay in my property rent-free, and he's taking advantage of me. That girl seems lovely, Mom said. Jake says you've been hostile toward her from the start. I laughed in disbelief. Amber threw a vase at me today. She wrote out a list of rules that I have to follow to enter my own property. You're exaggerating, Mom said. Ever since Mark left you, you've been bitter. We understand, sweetie, but don't take it out on your brother. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I ended the call and turned off my phone. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at nothing, letting the anger and hurt wash over me. The next day, I called a lawyer friend to make sure I was within my rights to evict Jake and Amber. She confirmed that since they weren't on any lease and the property was in my name, I could legally require them to leave. I also arranged for a locksmith to meet me at the apartment the following week. The days passed slowly. Jake called several times, but I let it go to voicemail. His messages oscillated between angry, "You're being totally unreasonable," and pleading, "Please, Ruby, we have nowhere else to go." I didn't respond to any of them. Mom and Dad called too. I ignored their calls as well. Finally, the week was up. I took the day off work and drove to the apartment, the locksmith scheduled to arrive an hour after me. I wasn't sure what to expect. Would they still be there? I knocked on the door, and to my surprise, Jake answered almost immediately. His eyes were red-rimmed, and he looked tired. We're almost done packing, he said quietly. I nodded and stepped inside. The apartment was a mess, boxes and bags everywhere. Amber was in the bedroom, shoving clothes into a suitcase. Where will you go? I asked despite myself. Mom and Dad said we can stay with them until we figure something out, Jake replied, not meeting my eyes. I felt a tiny pang of guilt, which I quickly suppressed. This was the consequence of their actions, not mine. We didn't speak much as they finished packing. Amber refused to look at me, moving around as if I were invisible. When they were finally ready to leave, she threw the keys onto the floor at my feet without a word. Amber, Jake said weakly, but she was already out the door. Jake lingered for a moment. I'm sorry about the vase, he said. And the locks. It was Amber's idea, but I went along with it. You always go along with things, Jake, I said. That's your problem. He nodded sadly, then picked up the last of his bags and left. After Jake and Amber left, I surveyed the damage to my apartment. The place was a disaster. There were stains on the carpet, scuff marks on the walls, and the bathroom had a layer of grime that made me gag. The kitchen wasn't much better. The sink was full of dirty dishes, and something unidentifiable was growing in the refrigerator. The locksmith arrived and changed all the locks. I paid him extra to install a deadbolt for additional security. As he worked, I started cleaning, filling garbage bag after garbage bag with the trash they'd left behind. It took me 3 full days to get the apartment back into decent shape. I had to hire professional cleaners for the bathroom and kitchen, and I ended up replacing the carpet in the living room. All told, it cost me over $1,000 to fix everything. Once the apartment was clean, I listed it for rent. I took professional photos, wrote up a detailed description, and set a fair price that would cover my mortgage with a little extra for maintenance. Within a week, I had multiple applications. I vetted each potential tenant carefully, checking references and running credit checks. Finally, I settled on a young doctor who was starting her residency at the local hospital. She had excellent credit, a steady income, and no pets. We signed a proper lease agreement with all the details spelled out clearly. The day she moved in, I handed her the keys with a sense of accomplishment. This was how it was supposed to go, a business transaction between responsible adults. For the next few weeks, I enjoyed my peaceful life. My parents eventually stopped calling, though they still sent occasional texts asking me to stop being stubborn and make amends with your brother. I deleted these without responding. Then, about a month after Jake and Amber moved out, I received a message from my mother that made me pause. "Ruby, I know you're still upset, but I need to talk to you. It's important, please call me." Something in the tone seemed different. I hesitated, then decided to call her back. The conversation that followed changed everything.